Before we get into today's show, I have one request for my listeners. I'm collaborating with another fellow pop culture podcast called It'll Be All Right in the 90s. They are looking for some feedback from you all. So here's a word from hosts Alex and Stu.
Hello, Amy, and all you pop culture retrospective listeners. Alex and Stu here from the It'll Be All Right in the 90s podcast over here in the UK. Hope you're all doing well. We have a question, don't we, Stu?
Yes, we do, and it's with regards to a feature we have on our podcast called What's the Most 90s? Every episode, we pick a different topic and try to decide what the most 90s of that topic is. And we'd like to know from you guys what you think the most 90s website is.
It's a tricky question, but hopefully you're all qualified to answer that better than most. So please do let us know, and we will discuss it on our next episode.
Very much looking forward to hearing from you.
You can email me with any ideas that you have to amy@popcultureretrospective.com, or you can send me a direct message on Instagram or Twitter, and please make sure to check out the podcast It'll Be All Right in the 90s. Now, on to the show. Thank you so very much for tuning into the Pop Culture Retrospective podcast. This show is dedicated to the memory of my big sister Rebecca, a fan of all things pop culture, particularly the people, places, and things that define the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Welcome aboard this pop culture time machine. I'm Amy Lewis. This is episode number 92, where I am joined by an incredibly talented TV and movie writer, director, and now author, Stan Zimmerman. On today's episode, I get to sit down and chat with Stan about his incredible career journey and how he has managed to turn a lot of really challenging situations into some very powerful work. Enjoy. All right. Well, thank you so very much, everybody, for tuning into the Pop Culture Retrospective podcast. And today I am very honored to be joined by Mr. Stan Zimmerman. And just a quick bio on him before we get into our discussion here.
There's nothing quick about it.
There's a lot. I have taken notes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Stan Zimmerman is a man of many mediums, from TV to film to stage. He's been nominated for 2 WGA, Writers Guild of America, awards for Best Comedy Writing for his work on The Golden Girls and Roseanne. Additionally, Stan's other Hollywood accolades include writing and producing Gilmore Girls, co-creating the Lifetime series Rita Rocks, writing for both Brady Bunch movies, and rewriting the ABC TV movie of Annie. Stan also famously requested that Andy Warhol please stop taking his photo during an evening at Studio 54. And he is, that was really funny. And he is also the author of the newly released book, The Girls from Golden to Gilmore, which reads almost like sort of part memoir and sort of part love letter. Nope, there we go. To the women in Stan's personal and professional life. Stan weaves together some just beautiful stories of friendship, as well as lessons learned during his high points and low points throughout his fascinating career. So Stan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and hello to the world and you in Maine.
Yes, it's a good place to be. Well, and like I was saying before we started recording, that I know you've been very busy. You've been on television talking about this and many other podcasts. And I also saw that you posted that today is your mother's birthday, who we'll be talking about, I'm sure, as we go throughout our discussion. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Thank you. I have this coffee drink. It's not quite the same as the tequila that they served me at Andy Cohen's show.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So I got to be the bartender on Watch What Happens Live 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was a fast 36 hours in New York. I was in Palm Springs directing Paul Rudnick play called The New Century at this wonderful new theater company called The Bent. Mm-hmm. It's an LGBTQ plus theater company in their second season. And we had a sold out run. And now I'm back in LA directing a new play called High Maintenance at the Road Theater Company, opening April 12th. It's about a high maintenance actress, something I know nothing about, who gets a job. She leaves Hollywood and gets a job doing a Doll's House Ibsen play, starring opposite a robot.
Whoa.
So it deals with the whole AI subject,
Yes.
and in a very funny and really smart way. And so I'm in the midst of blocking the show now. I'm very excited for people to come see it.
Wow, man, you've just
Yeah, I know.
you've done so many interesting things in
That's
your
where the coffee comes in.
yes, that is key. I came to find out as I was reading through your book. So my first question that I kind of like to ask people is, um, at what point in your life did you realize that comedy and writing were going to be an important part of your life?
Age 7.5.
Mhm.
I talk about that in the book and also in my play Right Before I Go, which we'll sure get into.
Yeah.
Um, I went to a summer theater camp, Cranbrook Theater School in Michigan, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, and they put me in these plays, which were very corny plays, like Princess and the Pea, and my little 7-year-old self was having none of it.
Mhm.
So I decided to just, rewrite it on my own. So
Yeah.
I would, if I was playing the king, I wasn't just a king. I became this huge fat king, and of course, I was, like 3'4".
Yeah.
So it was very comical. And when I came out on stage dressed like that, I knew what I was doing, but I wasn't expecting an entire theater to just scream with laughter.
Yeah.
And that laughter sent a jolt up my spine.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have to figure out a way to make this my life. I need
Yeah.
more of this. And I didn't really know about writing. I didn't ever think I could be a writer because I wasn't a reader. I didn't really get great grades in English class
Mhm.
because I always felt you had to kind of be overly flowery with adjectives, and my writing was very straightforward, very
Sure.
succinct.
Yeah.
So, you were lauded in those classes if you kind of added a lot. And I was like, well, I'm not adding anymore. And
Yeah.
if you don't want to give me a good grade, well, then, F you.
Right.
Not knowing years later that succinct quality of my writing would so help me in television writing.
Yeah.
Because in television, especially
Point.
half hour, you have 23 minutes, and it's a little less now because there's more commercials.
Yeah.
So you've got to like be tight with your thoughts and your plots and your structure.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it actually worked in my benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It really seemed like from what I was reading in your book, which I read multiple times and got to listen to audio and many times, which was really helpful too, to kind of get a picture of things. It sounded like growing up wasn't really was hard for you, and a lot happened at school, and kids being pretty terrible. And it sounds like
Spitting
acting.
on me,
Yeah,
I did not, especially seventh, eighth, and ninth grade were pretty rough for me.
yeah,
And I think that's why I was so affected by the death of Nex in the bathroom being beat
yes,
up. That was my fear
hmm,
of going to the bathroom and something like that would happen.
yeah,
And I, I'm just, I can't, it just hurts so much when I think of what Nex went through. So I never went to the bathroom between those
yeah,
grades. Not the best thing for your bladder.
right,
And my mother would, she'd see the school bus come and she would open the door and hold it open so I could literally run from the bus up to my bathroom. And then we
yeah,
could talk, and eat Fritos and Hawaiian Punch and, all before, the match game, which I was obsessed with. I just,
sure,
come
yeah,
on, Charles
classic,
Nelson Riley and Brett Summers and uh, all those great, personalities. Betty
yeah,
White, Elaine
yes,
Joyce. Yeah, yeah.
sure, yeah. Well, yeah, your mom sounds like she was a really wonderful person, and it sounds like you kind of had several women sort of in your corner rooting for you as a kid, like your mom. And you mentioned a couple of different teachers that contacted your mom to sort of stress what talent that you had and your ability to act and to write plays for kids in your second grade class.
It was Mrs. Golden, and it was funny. The Detroit News, I'm from Detroit,
Yeah,
called to do an interview, and I told them about Mrs. Golden because I would do plays in class, and she called my mother and said, "I think he needs to go to Cranbrook Theater School." So if she hadn't called, I wouldn't
yeah,
have gone. It's all connected, and it was funny. The writer said, "Well, what was Mrs. Golden's first name?" Like I don't know. I was a student. They were always Miss or Miss Golden.
Right.
They had first names. Like
Yeah.
what? Like we never thought of that back then.
It's true.
Maybe now people, students think that, but back then they were,
Oh yeah.
you treated them with respect.
Right. Yeah. Even if I see my childhood's friends, their parents, I still refer to them as Mr. and Mrs. I still can't.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's wrong. You
yeah.
would never do that.
Yeah. Doesn't feel right. So what inspired you to put this book together?
I was inspired to write the book because the number one question, which I state in the book at the very beginning, is how, as a man, especially a young man back then, be able to write for women, and especially on Golden Girls for older women.
Yeah.
And I really attributed to my grandmother, my mother, and my sister, who are all extremely smart, extremely funny,
Yeah.
brilliant women that I got to have a front row seat, every day.
Yeah.
And they were not shy about their opinions and their sense of humor. And I think just listening to them and then being friends with a lot of young women and girls starting out in elementary school, I was always drawn to women. They were my best friends,
Yeah.
always. And they became my allies and protected me, as throughout all the years when, as a young closeted gay person, they were there for me.
Yeah.
And some of them didn't even know it then, or we didn't talk about it back then. It wasn't as open as it is today.
Yeah.
But even my mom protected me when the theater school sent a note home saying we had to go buy ballet slippers for the final production.
hmm
And she knew enough that my father would not approve. So we
Yeah.
went and bought the ballet slippers, but she said, keep them underneath your bed.
Wow.
And he didn't see them until I was on stage. And then I was on stage and the audience is like, oh my God. And after the play, everyone come running up to him and say, your son's so funny and so talented. And then
Yeah.
it was kind of okay in a
hmm
weird way. But the other side of that is think of what that does to a child.
Absolutely.
Yes, she was protecting me, but the idea that I had to hide that, something that
Right.
I was good at,
Yeah.
a talent,
Right.
I had to squash down.
Yeah.
And there was some negativity around that,
Sure.
a lot of negativity around that. It was, and then the media, then it was bad. And you
Yeah.
got it everywhere you went in the world. Um, so, people say, how could you be hiding when you were right on Golden Girls out in Hollywood? Well, I'd been practicing hiding that part of me since I was a child.
Hmm. That's a good point.
So
Yeah.
by the time I got to Hollywood, I was an expert at it.
Yeah.
We knew the things to say to divert attention or to make a joke or be funny and change the subject.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you were getting, obviously getting some pushback and having to hide some things, how did you sort of push through that as a teenager and young adult, which then, of course, led to this career? How did you sort of dampen those sort of negative comments to kind of continue pursuing your passion?
It was the laughter.
Yeah.
It was very odd because I was unpopular during 7th through 9th grade, but then I would go to the summer theater camp and I was the most popular kid.
Hmm.
And my mother would always comment, like she would see, mostly girls, but all the students would be like, bye, Stan, at the end of the day when I'd jump in the car.
Yeah.
And she just saw that I was so loved and supported. And I had so many friends and some of the campers I still am friends with. So it was very hard for me as a kid to go up to my little bedroom and, wanting to figure out why during the summer I'm accepted and popular and not hated.
Yeah.
And then I go to school and I'm spit on. And I couldn't figure that out. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, you're the same person. Why does one group? So like I'm thinking, what can I do in school that would make me be liked? That's
Right.
what we all wanted at that age.
Yes.
And then it happened between 9th and 10th grade when I went from junior high to high school. And
hmm
I also let my hair, believe it or not, I had a big Jufro.
Yes.
And
I saw the photos.
yeah,
And
I
they are
know.
fantastic.
Oh
They are
my God, I
fantastic.
can't believe I posted those. But I let my hair go natural. I had been spending years, straightening in chemicals and wearing ski caps during breakfast before school. And it was almost symbolic of letting my hair go natural and then letting me just be natural.
Yeah.
And that combination, and then people liked me and wanted to elect me, president of the Thespian organization, which was the theater high school group. And then it started all coming together, and I loved going to school because I just had a lot of friends, and all the theater nerds kind of found each other.
Yeah.
And we had our tribe, but theater saved my life.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been for that world, I don't know if I would be here.
Yeah. I was going to say, thank God that you found that sense of belonging and camaraderie and friendship and stuff. And especially to find that at some point in high school, it seems like for some people a lot of people that doesn't happen ever.
But
so
luckily it
happened.
started when I was 7 at the theater camp.
Yeah.
So if I didn't have a piece of that, I don't think I could have gotten through the school year because I knew I could always go back there and that was my world. So I kind of held on.
Sure.
Or I would do plays in my basement with neighborhood kids.
Yeah.
So that was like after school I was fine. I could go into the world of my basement and play and have the kids over from neighborhood to direct them in Fiddler on the Roof, which was probably illegal to do the play, but I did it anyway.
Sure.
Or going into the fantasy world of television and being so obsessed with TV shows and what was coming on, and Lily Tomlin on Laugh-In, and that's kind of where I lived in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. And you sort of mapped out a whole evening of television shows and had your own network. And
no, I mapped out 7 nights a week, not just one night. I had to do a whole schedule.
That is impressive.
Yes. So I should have been a network executive, but somehow this writing thing got in the way.
Yeah. And you said you invited Carol Burnett to come to that premiere.
I did. Well, I created in my bedroom and in my mind, I created what was called the Junior Emmy Awards, which is so interesting because then when they end up coming with like the Nickelodeon Awards, who do you think they stole it from?
Right. Exactly.
So I thought I thought kids should vote on their favorite TV shows.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't come up with the sliming business, but I thought kids should have their own Junior Emmy Awards, and the Emmys should probably take note of this. And so I, of course, gave Carol Burnett as many awards as I can. And I sent her a letter inviting her, like, what would she have done? Come to my bedroom, and I would have given her, I don't know, what, like a stuffed animal as an award? I don't know. But then in the many, many full circle moments, I did get to write for Vicki Lawrence from the Carol Burnett Show, and on Roseanne, she did a guest spot. And so, you get old enough, all these things you dreamed of suddenly start happening.
Yeah.
You're going, wow, okay, that's pretty powerful.
That is, yeah. I love that. And you picking to go to Hollywood as a vacation with your family. It's amazing, just sort of your journey. So how did this sort of obsession, as you said, with television, how did that lead to your ultimate career path?
Well, I was just obsessed with Hollywood, and my parents, for our 13th birthday, which was my bar mitzvah, they said you could pick anywhere in the world to go. The world. My brother picked Israel. I picked Hollywood. Like, how crazy is that? I just had to see it. So it's so funny, living near Universal. It's like I was at Universal when I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
And then I went to a summer theater camp. My cousin, Don Epstein, who wrote for Mad Magazine. How cool is that?
Yeah.
He suggested I go to this summer theater camp in Hampton, New Hampshire. And that changed the trajectory of my life. I thought I would go to USC or UCLA for college. And then at this camp, everybody said, if you wanted to be serious about theater and acting, you had to go to New York.
Yeah.
And that just led me to, I have to get into NYU. There were 2 hurdles. One, I had to audition to get in. And the other, I had to come up with a lot of money. It was an expensive private college.
Yeah.
I got accepted to U of M, University of Michigan. And my father was like, well, it's cheap. Your whole family went there. Your brother went there. All your friends from high school are going there. Madonna's going there. No, we didn't know who Madonna was. Why can't you go there? And I was like, but New York. And I auditioned, and luckily I got in. And my parents were getting a divorce, and my father would only pay as much as U of M cost. And my mother said to me, God bless her, if this is really what you want to do, we will find the money. And she found the money.
Yeah.
And she got a job and worked hard. And I got a work study program at NYU. And we figured it out and had student loans and went through all of that. And at NYU, I met my writing partner, Jim Berg. We were introduced through our friend Jack Eckstein. And we would make each other laugh walking down the street. And he was studying journalism and I was studying acting. And our love for TV and films. And we went to a movie one day and we were back at his apartment and talking about our love of television. And we're like, let's write a pilot.
Wow.
And we started writing a pilot. Like, why would we do that? But we did. And then we started writing spec scripts. And right away, we just set up this, what would our names be called? And we decided it looked better, his name first, because it was shorter, James Berg, and Stan Zimmerman. But because he got to go first, our company would be called Zimmerman Berg.
Oh, there you go.
We did this in college.
Yeah.
And we came to Hollywood and everybody just said Zimmerman Berg. That's what it was like a little name, or they would shorten it. Where's Z and B?
Yeah.
Like, how did we even know that would be a thing?
Right.
But we did. And then we also had little rules like we said, let's not talk during the weekend. And that way, Monday, when we would get together after school, it would be fresh and we were excited to get together and write and share stories of what we had done and put that in our work. And we just kept that going. And luckily, we're still doing it. I mean, he's going to be over here this afternoon working on a TV movie script. We had just done this past year, before the strike, a Lifetime Christmas movie. Ladies of the 80s, A Diva's Christmas, starring a few people you might have heard of, like, Donna Mills and Linda Gray and Morgan Fairchild and Lonnie Anderson and Nicolette Sheridan.
Wow. That's a
and
who's who
Christopher
right there.
Atkins. I mean, it was a who's who. It was fast and furious because we got the job a year ago, last March, and we had to write it by May 1st.
Oh my gosh.
But the strike happened. It was like, shut your computers.
Yeah. Oh my
God. And the producers kept saying, can you do it? Can you do it? And we're like, we've written on sitcoms so long.
Right.
Sometimes on a sitcom, we'll throw out, or we won't, but the network will throw out an entire script and we'll have to rewrite it from scratch overnight. So we're like, we got it. We got it.
Yeah.
And we did.
Yeah. It sounds like that has happened to you many times where people have kind of asked you to come to the rescue because you're able to rework stuff and make it funnier and make it, more interesting, more relatable.
I like coming in and rewriting. It's a fun job. And, usually when you come in to do rewrites, and we have been rewritten as well. I mean, that's just part of the, career path.
Sure.
But usually when you're brought in to rewrite a project, they've had problems figuring it out. So they're just looking to you. So anything you give them, you're like, oh my God, that's so great. We hadn't thought about it. But sometimes they need fresh eyes on it.
Yeah.
We got to do that with the Annie movie and got to work with Kristen Chenoweth and Alan Cumming and becoming friends with Alan, and then ended up writing a pilot for him.
Yeah.
But we did that in the Brady Bunch movie. They had gone through 4 sets of writers. And then they came to us and said, can you just punch it up, which is like add more jokes. We'll hire you for 2 weeks. And then they read what we did and they're like, oh my God. And we bonded with Betty Thomas, the director, and they said 2 more weeks and 2 more weeks and 2 more weeks. And that was probably the most fun job I've had.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, I noticed in your book too, you commented on Christine Taylor specifically and just how brilliant she is. And I've always felt the same way about her performance. Oh my God.
When we saw that, it was so
Good.
uncanny. It was Maureen McCormick. It was just twisted,
Yes.
just the right
Yes.
in a crazy weird way. So when we saw her and Jennifer Elise Cox, who played Jan,
Hmm.
we're just like, oh no, they need a lot more. We've got to keep this sibling rivalry. We're going in deep on that,
Yeah.
and that's what got so crazy with the dreams and the cutting her hair, and all
Yeah.
this stuff, and just making fun of George Glass, and it was
Hmm.
just but I'm the prettiest. I mean, all that stuff. It was so much fun, and we've
Yeah.
been really wanting to do a streaming series of the Brady Ladies with
Oh.
those two actors and Olivia Hack, who played Cindy, and they all
Yeah.
want to do it, but
Yeah.
we can't get Paramount behind it. Like, who would not want to watch that show? Come on, it would be
Right.
so fun.
Yeah, nostalgia is a big deal. I mean, everything's kind of coming back full circle now, so that is very surprising. A lot of things that you've said in your kind of failed scripts or failed pilots, I'm not that I'm certainly not an expert on television, but the one about, I think it was like Whoopi Goldberg was a school nurse who kind of was being nosy about the students or something like that.
But
That
also
sounded
very political
hysterical.
and always like
Yeah,
getting into trouble.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean that would have been great. But the Brady Ladies, so we
yes,
see them moving to West Hollywood together. One is divorced, one is widowed, and of course Jan has never been married because
right,
Of course, there was a close call with the guy named George Glass, yeah,
yes,
or George Tropicana.
right,
For
yes,
those in the know.
yes. Yeah, well, and I liked how you mentioned that you were very integral in making sure that RuPaul was cast in the Brady Bunch movie, if I'm remembering correctly. And
Yeah, so we were reading a lot of actresses for the role,
yeah,
and it was people like Jennifer Lewis and Sheryl Lee Ralph and people like that, and many types of actors. And then I happened to be at a bar in West Hollywood, and out came this on the video screen, this new singer, RuPaul,
yeah,
like the drag queen, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, who is that? We never heard of him before."
yeah,
And I just went to work the next day and I said, I have the most insane idea, and you're probably going to laugh at me and say no. I said, but could a drag queen play Miss Cummings, the guidance counselor?
yes,
And Betty was like, why not?
yeah,
Let me meet him. And he came in and got the part. And then while we were filming, that song like just
yeah,
became not just in the gay world, but became, a very, pop culture mainstream hit.
yes,
And look where we are with drag strip and all of that. I mean,
right. Who
like
knew?
who would have guessed it would have gone that mainstream? So
Right.
I feel really proud to have been a small part
Yeah,
in that. But to have like a mainstream studio movie cast a drag queen and
right.
then not really say anything about it, it's just like that's what it is.
Yeah,
Was pretty out there for that time.
yeah, yeah. Well, that was cast brilliantly, and he does such a good job. And he ends up being in both of the movies, right?
Well, then when they went to do the sequel, and the Arlene Sanford was hired to direct it, and she said, "Oh, it's too bad because it takes place during the summer. We're not going to be able to get RuPaul in it." And standing right there, I remember where we were at Alan Ladd's office at Paramount, and I said, "Why not? Like,
Hmm.
we can get her in it." And they're like, "Well, how?"
Yeah,
And I was like, don't challenge me like that. I said, well, what if the three girls are at the pool?
hmm,
And then I said, oh my God, what if there's a pool and she has three daughters? And we go, and then we do Moesha, Moesha, Moesha.
so
I don't
good.
know where that came from, my sick head.
Yeah,
And they all went like, oh my God, that's hysterical. Sign them up.
yeah,
And you can figure a way out. That's why I love being given problems and solving them creatively.
yeah.
That's so my I love being in that world, figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that has served you quite well, given the nature of and kind of nature and stress. And I don't even know how just overwhelming it sounds like being a television or movie writer is.
Yeah, especially multicam sitcoms because you're there on the floor. You don't get to go home and rewrite it and think about it. You're
Yeah.
there. The audience is there. The actors are there. You're paying all these people, the cameramen, the lighting, everything,
Sure.
and give them another joke.
Yeah.
I don't particularly love that pressure, but you do it enough, you get better at it, and I feel like now I would be a little more self confident.
Sure.
When get beat up a lot of times on shows and you start to question yourself. I mean, that's in any job, I think.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of pressure. Like now I would just be, and maybe it's just getting old, like, here's what I think, or here's a joke,
Right.
like it or not, I don't care, fire me. But, back then it was like, you got to keep the job. What are you going to, what are you going to do to keep the job?
Right. Yeah. Walk on eggshells and
Yeah.
have to sound like in a lot of instances, your first position was what you're most known for when you started off was for Golden Girls. Sounded like a lot of that time spent there was having to be sort of in the closet and not being kind of open and honest about what you did over the weekend. Meanwhile, the Golden Girls is sort of known as being a more progressive show for its time. And how did you sort of cope with that?
Again, it was years of practice of being in the closet. You just knew
Yeah.
what to say. But it was, I hadn't really thought about it that way until someone read a rough draft of my book and said, how did you write so openly, but you were so closed about who you were?
Right.
Back then, we just were able to to kind of keep things separate.
Yeah.
We could just keep it. Your work life was different than your creative life and your romantic life, and all in little compartments. And we just knew how to do that. And
Yeah.
but it was such a relief when we finally did come out. We were in an article in a local, one of those alternative newspapers back
Mhm.
then when we had them.
Yeah.
What's a newspaper?
Right.
Nobody knows. And our representative said you shouldn't do that and don't take pictures, have your picture in there.
Wow.
So we were just like, no, it's time. It's just
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
because I was out to my family, so with Jim and to our friends, but not to the creative community in Hollywood.
Mhm.
And I don't know, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And we
Wow.
didn't feel like, it wasn't like, we had like moving from the back of the bus, but there was
Sure.
something historic about it. But it's just like it was time. It was just time to put a face to it.
Yeah.
And we did, and I'm glad we did. We felt better about it, and then it also was, people were opening up. Also, it was the height of the AIDS crisis.
Mhm.
So when you have so many of your friends dying, you're like, yeah, it's my career, but like I have life still,
Right. Right.
So we just had to do it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's amazing. I'm sure that I imagine that was a big sigh of relief for you and Jim.
Yeah, but then the other side of it was going on Roseanne and having Tom Arnold run to the offices. Where are my gay guys?
Yeah.
Now we could sue him for a lot of money for saying that, but I
Sure.
wonder how long time period is. Yeah,
Yeah.
too late. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure Roseanne squandered all that money. Oh my God,
Yeah.
watching her.
Yeah.
I've been looking at like clips of her podcast, and it's like, woman, like just calm down. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to watch because it feels so filled with hate. And I've
Mhm.
seen her talk at some of these ultra right wing conferences.
Yeah.
I just respected her so much, and that she was giving voice to middle America. And I don't know what voice she's giving to now. It's just,
Yeah.
um, I don't know if it's helping.
Right.
And I wish she could use her voice and power for good
Right.
rather than evil.
Right. Yeah. Because certainly you would have thought it would be sort of the other way based on the sort of premise of the show. And you mentioned a lot of very compassionate things, though, about her as well, that were kind of disappointed with the outcome of when she sort of had that sort of outburst via Ambien about
Valerie Jarrett. Yeah.
right. Yes, who worked under Obama, and you mentioned that it would have been nice if maybe it would have been more of like a teachable moment situation to kind of maybe help her work through some
Help
of that,
all of
or
us. Help
right,
all of us just talk about racism and
right,
not just blame it on Ambien and again push it under the rug and
right,
then kick it down the can down the road,
yeah,
and that we're still dealing with racism. And now it's like, come on, like haven't
right,
we evolved as a society?
yeah,
Um, but it's, we're having to deal with that. And anti-trans laws and just the othering of other people. I can't believe we're still here talking about that. And the
Right.
nerve of some of these people, like when I think back, I'm like, we had to ask permission to get married?
Hmm.
Like, what the hell was that about? Like,
Right.
how dare you, the privilege that you think you have to grant us permission?
Right.
It's even hard to explain to like young people
It
that,
is. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I remember when
or to
that
exist, to
passed.
just
Right.
exist,
Yeah.
that these students, they're not hurting you. So why do we have to get permission to just live our lives however we want to live?
Right. Exactly. Because I don't know the person walking down the street. I have no idea who they are, what they do, and that really has no impact on my life. So
And
I
who
just keep
cares
walking down the sidewalk.
who they love or how
Right.
they want to dress or who they want to be or what they want to be called? Who
Right.
cares? It's them. It's their choice.
Right. I know what difference does it make in the grand scheme of your life? I ask myself that question on a daily basis, and it's just I don't know. It's unreal. What benefit does hate have? It has, I mean, none. There's really no benefit to being discriminatory or
Maybe it's to lift them above the rest of us, but
Yeah.
why?
Right.
Why can't we all just live together in this world and
Right.
laugh about it and get through it together? I mean, there's been so much, in our lifetime recently, from 9/11 to COVID to all the stuff,
Yeah.
this collective trauma we've been figuring out. How do we keep going to the next day?
Right.
We need each other. We need allies. We need our family and friends, because otherwise it's just so lonely. We're just so, I don't want to be alone.
Right. Yeah. I hear you. It's definitely been an interesting few years. That is, I always joke that I wish that I could be like my mom's age when she was, in her 40s and the in the mid 80s. I would like to kind of go back to that time frame where you're just not as aware of everything that's going on, because right now is a very stressful time to be a human being on this planet, I think
Yes,
so.
but I don't want to go back to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's like going
There's
back
some,
in the closet. We
no,
always have to
no,
keep
no.
moving forward, but
Yes.
like
Yes.
let's move this love thing, but I was joking with a friend. I'm like, I swear to God, if aliens came down tomorrow, we'd be like, oh hi, yeah, what do you want? You want a power grid? It's over there. I mean,
Right.
what more could happen? We would just go like, yeah. I mean, we
Right.
have seen it, almost all of it. I mean, every crazy story, like January 6th. Did you ever think you'd be
Right.
watching that on television?
No. And I can't, I had to turn that off so many times. I could just not even, it's like I need to know what's happening in the world, but that is so horrifying and makes me so uncomfortable and so terrified that I can't even,
No matter what you
you know.
believed at the election, that's your response.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And that's why, thank God, we have things like, but which I think this happened for a lot of people, especially during the pandemic, is thank God we had things like TV shows and movies and stuff to sort of help us escape from
Well,
all of
Golden
that.
Girls was like the number 2 or 3 show on Hulu. Like, how
I believe
crazy
it.
is that? And then
Yeah,
the New York Times said Gilmore Girls was the number 6 watched show of 2023.
amazing.
A series that was done,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
almost 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, people find a lot of sort of therapeutic value in nostalgia and in TV shows, especially I
Comfort.
think where they know what's going to happen. The characters are pretty much going to remain the same. There's a comfort in sort of that
Well,
knowledge
maybe
and
you're
looking
onto
back.
something, that the characters are going to remain the same. Because I
Yeah.
literally wake up at 3 o'clock, turn on Morning Joe, and go, "Is the world still going?
Right.
Like, what's happening?"
Yeah.
And during the last administration, I didn't know if the world was going to keep going. Like, is that person going to press the red button and everything's just going to suddenly blow up?
Right.
And to turn it on and go, "Oh yeah, they're sitting at the table eating cheesecake.
Yeah.
Thank God 4 of them are still around."
Yeah. It's true.
Or Lorelai and Roy, oh, they're still drinking coffee and having Pop Tarts. Okay, we're
Right.
good. We're good to go.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like in my mind, the sort of transition music that's in Golden Girls like provides me a lot of
Oh,
comfort. That's
do we
like,
sing it now?
yeah,
The
it's
little la
gotta be
la
one of the
la
best.
la 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 la
Yeah,
la.
yeah,
Oh
it's
my
the
God,
best.
I can't sing. Don't make me do it.
Yeah, no, same here.
Okay.
Same here. Well, I wanted to ask you a couple of things about Golden Girls actually, because that was the very first episode of the podcast was on the Golden Girls, which was a lot of fun to put together. So I, really enjoyed reading that part of your story. And so you started writing for that show when you were pretty much right out of college. Is that correct?
A little bit after, yeah.
Yeah.
I like to say I was, in 10th grade because it
Yeah.
makes me seem younger, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had a chance to go back and watch several of those episodes. I have all of the seasons of the Golden Girls on DVD, and it was really nice to see your name on the case there.
There was only season 1. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, good right off the bat. A lot
Well,
of shows don't have that.
we set a lot of where the show went.
Yeah.
We were in the room when we came up with the name St. Olaf.
Yeah,
Like we sat there and we thought we should give the town a name. And I remember going through phone books
yeah,
it was crazy, but we were there, and so all those things were set up, kind of a blueprint. I mean, Susan Harris created a great pilot, great characters.
yes,
And then that's the fun of being on the show and being on staff, is that you can take that and then you meld it with what the actors bring to it.
yeah,
And then your own imagination, and then things you're living through or your mother's going through or your grandmother, and
right.
putting it in the show.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, you mentioned you used a lot of material from your mother and your grandmother to.
Well, my mother
Kinda
always
work.
thought I put her in there, even when I didn't. And I would just go, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, Mom.
Yeah,
If that's what you want to believe.
Yeah.
And maybe subconsciously I was, but
Sure.
yeah, I mean, you have to go, which your lived experience is always so helpful to base things on.
Definitely,
And then
definitely.
your imagination. I mean, that's what's so great is that, and my mother really, for my brother and sister, encouraged our imaginations and creativity and individuality.
Mhm.
I tell the story that instead of getting one cereal box, that one cornflakes, she
Yeah.
would buy the little 6-packs, the little one.
Mhm. Oh, yes.
She'd put that on the kitchen table and said, you pick whatever you want.
Wow.
And so already, and I remember later going like, what made you think of that? It was such a cool thing for such a young mother to do.
Yeah.
But she wanted us to pick, why should I eat what my brother liked?
Mhm.
If I like Sugar Smacks is what I got.
Yeah.
And my sister, if she loved Fruit Loops, you take the Fruit Loops, go
Yeah.
for it.
Right.
There's too much color in the morning for me. Sugar snacks I could deal with. Nice,
Yeah.
just a hint of sugar. A
Yeah.
hint. It was probably like all 100% sugar.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff they gave us as kids.
Yeah.
That we ate. I mean, we ate
You remember
like
that?
Del Monte. Everything was in a can. Del Monte can. I was like, I got to
Full of
New York
preservatives.
in college, and I was like, you mean vegetables aren't like kind of brown? Oh, they're green. Oh,
Yeah.
and then I got to California, and you go into the supermarket, it's like colors,
Yeah.
fruit.
Yeah.
Like, fruit's in a can. What do you mean? It's like it comes fresh. I
Yeah.
didn't know that concept. It came
Yeah.
in a can with a lot of sugary juice in it or something.
Yes.
Give me some
Yes.
Del Monte pears. Oh, I'm gonna go have some when we get done with this.
It's exquisite. Yes.
Yes.
It's very sophisticated.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, that's nice that your mom wasn't sort of having that like take it or leave it mentality. Sounds like she's a little bit more flexible than that, and that's certainly admirable given the sort of stereotype for that generation of mother. So good on her. She sounded like an awesome person already, and that just adds to it. So
Yeah. Somebody said the nicest thing. They said after reading the book, like, I feel like I know your mother through you. And, I'm not a parent, but I can imagine just the pride that parents must have when they see their kids do certain things. And I love that I'm kind of carrying on her legacy in her life through
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be me if it wasn't for her.
Right. Yeah, I was listening to that part of the book where she said something to you that even if you weren't her son, that she would still want to be your friend. And I was driving when I was listening to that, and I was like, oh, think I need to pull over because that is the sweetest thing. I'm the mother of 2 sons, so that's just a very beautiful sentiment. She sounds like
And to be able to
incredible woman.
talk to me about it.
Yeah.
It was interesting when she had her stroke 2.5 years ago and was in hospice, and I didn't really know how to deal with any of that. And I just went online, like, how do you deal with death and grief? And everybody kept saying, there's no one way to do it, but
Right.
also say everything you want to say now, before they go, even if they're not responding, just say it. And I thought, we don't have to apologize or say sorry to each other.
Mm.
We were cool before that. How lucky
Yeah.
was I that all I had to say was just "I love you," over and over. But that made it very difficult too, as well. Of every day going to visit her in hospice care, and it's like, what can I say? And it wasn't finally till the end, after my sister went back east, where I just sat down and I said, all right, I know I'm a writer. I know this is sound really corny.
Yeah.
Like, go to the white light. I wish I had a better imagery, but let's go with the tried and true.
Right.
And then I left her and I went home. And an hour later they called and she went to the white light.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But they say that even after I must have gotten some algorithm of doulas on TikTok. Yes, I go through TikTok in the middle of the night. It's terrible, but I do it.
Who doesn't?
Yeah,
no
exactly.
judgment.
I except when some of those TikTok people go, I know you're scrolling, stop scrolling. And I'm like, how do they know I'm doing this?
Yeah, really.
But they know. And a lot of the doulas talked about in depth, some people don't want you to be in the room before they go.
Interesting.
Because I had some guilt, like, oh, should I have been there? But even the hospice people said, like, you got to go home. Like, you're not good. You're not okay. Like, this is not good for you to be sitting here all day, which I could have.
Yeah.
But I lived so close to her, so I could have gotten there like in less than 5 minutes. But I don't think, knowing her and how she had so much pride, she didn't want to be in any kind of compromising position. She would always say to me, when I get too much, just push me over a mountain. I'm like, Mom, I can't do that. I would be arrested. But I don't think she would have wanted me to be there at the end, because that would have been the image that I still have of her.
Right.
And maybe that's just in my head, but it's helped me work through a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, actually, now that you say that. Yeah, it's like in some weird way, people know kind of when their time is, and I could see that wanting to have just time to yourself to have that happen. That makes sense.
She was such a private person and loved living alone, and I'll probably be the same way.
Yeah.
I don't want people to have to, just get out of the room so I can go,
Right.
But I've learned so much since then. I wish I knew more, but going through it, but when you know, and but now I'm understanding more what the dementia part of it was, and that they're almost leaving their body already. And that's why when you see someone with dementia and they look the same, they look the same, but there was something not quite fully in the eyes.
Yes.
It's like, because her spirit had already left, and I think it was like hovering over, going to the next world. And that some people are like, oh, Stan, like, what are you talking about? But
no,
if it helps me figure it out, I'm gonna go with this story.
Right. Yeah. Well, you wrote about her so beautifully. It was very touching and nice addition to your story. And I think that's why another reason why I enjoyed your book so much too is it wasn't like here's like the latest Hollywood gossip on, all of these famous people. It's like, here's what happened during my time there, and this is what I took from it. And even if it was difficult or frustrating, I still gleaned something from it. And I think that's what makes this such a inspirational, for lack of a better term, not sound too corny, but what makes it such an inspirational read.
But also, I know people say, oh, well, you drop a lot of names, but those are just the people I worked with.
Sure.
And I don't take it for granted. And I'm so grateful that I was even ever in rooms with a Jane Fonda or Lily
Yes.
Tomlin. Like, how
Yeah.
did I'm more coming in from like, how did I get in here? Like, how is this even possible?
Right.
So I want people to be walking through it like I did. Like, what? I'm going, who? I'm in Jane Fonda's house?
Right.
Like, that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy in my mind. But then there's a little part of me going like, yeah, well, why you belong here? And there is a school of thought of you belong at that table, like you belong in the room.
Yeah.
And so there's the little nerdy kid that's like, how did I get here? But then there's also like, yeah, you've
Right.
wanted to do this, like you're there, so do it.
Right. Yeah. I definitely got the feeling of that, of you being very grateful for your experiences and friendships and encounters. And just, yeah, certainly there's a lot of names in the book, but I took it more of what you gleaned from those experiences and what you learned, and trying to turn something negative into something positive, which I think is something that a lot of people just don't really take the time to do.
But it goes back to my mother too. She'd be very practical. She'd be
Yeah.
like, well, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You know? I'm like, oh, you're right. Like what else could I do? I mean, I could just be negative, but I don't want to live in that world.
Right.
Like, yeah, all right. So, and she would always be, what are the pros and cons?
Yeah.
And when you start listing them, you go, yeah, I'm going to stick with a lot of pros in this one,
Yeah.
So all these little life lessons, I don't take it for granted. I guess you could, but
Yeah.
in writing the book, you look back and you go, oh, wow, okay, that thought got me through that. And this is
Yeah.
getting me through this. And,
Sure.
um, the job of a mother, even at a young age, I was just like, wow, like I would always be just in amazement that, you know, whether you carry a kid or not, but when you carry a human being inside of you for
Yeah.
9 months,
Right.
they're a part of your body, and then they come out of you, and then all of a sudden they're like, where are the car keys? I want to go. And you're like, wait,
Right.
what? Like,
Yeah.
I kept asking her, and that's a weird question to ask when you're 14 or 15. Like, how do you let go as a mother?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
go, okay, go on to the world,
Right.
Um, I just found that just endlessly interesting.
Yeah.
The separation anxiety, and do you ever really separate? But you want your child to go and succeed. Want to give them that, but how
Right.
difficult that must be. And as a writer, that push and pull,
Mm.
and as an actor, that I love that idea of like one thing, but then the other thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes for interesting drama and comedy.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Well, one thing you mentioned in your book, that one kind of nice thing that came out of your time on the Golden Girls specifically was your friendship with Estelle Getty. And I was really fascinated to learn that you had kind of been working on doing sort of like a one woman show of her life or something like that. Is
I'm
that?
still pondering it and
Yeah.
how we do that. And I've talked to her sons and her old managers, and which was really cool to hear from her old managers
Yeah.
that Estelle talked about me to them. Like I would never have known that if I hadn't talked to them, and how
Yeah.
much she enjoyed knowing me and being friends with me and hanging out with me and respecting me as a writer. I'm like, really? Like,
Yeah.
I knew she liked me, or else she wouldn't be calling me at home. I
Right.
literally remember where I was sitting in my house when oh, it's Stoghetti. Hi, and she's
Right.
like, what are you doing? And what project? Okay. And she'd give me advice on things. And
Yeah.
she was just like a real mother figure. And she really enjoyed playing that for, many of the people in her sphere.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely got that impression. And
And
who
yet
would
she had a
be?
complicated relationship with her own kids.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that would be
Who
so
knew?
interesting to delve into that. I mean,
Yeah.
and then I saw it from her kids' side, like it was weird to, you know, go see your mother in a play, and she'd be like wearing a bra and a slip, and you're like, "Oh,
Right.
mom, that's my mother up there."
Right.
I was proud of my mother. She was one of those election people,
Hmm.
so she would take, like when I was in elementary school, we would take the class in, and she was the lady in charge of all the election stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
But she wasn't in a bra and slip doing it. So can you imagine having a parent as an actor and watching them play all these weird characters. And then to have her cook you dinner, and then she'd be, all right, I'm going into the city to do some weird play, with
Right.
Harvey Firestein, like off
Right.
Broadway with a bunch of gay guys and drag queens. And they're like, what?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
got to be, a different childhood.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And so if this is able to come together, which would be amazing, is there somebody that you have in mind, or who would be like your dream cast to play the role of Estelle Getty?
Who I think would be really funny is Rhea Perlman.
Oh,
And I got to meet her. I worked with her daughter, Lucy DeVito, who is so friggin' talented. We did, I had this crazy idea. I don't know if you know Wendy Wasserstein. She was a really famous Pulitzer Prize winning playwright. She wrote the Heidi Chronicles.
yep.
I had this idea. I did play readings, 3 of her plays in one day.
Yeah.
11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and like 6 o'clock. Because I wanted to see the trajectory of this writer from Uncommon Women to the Plays and a Romantic to Heidi Chronicles. And Lucy DeVito kind of played the Wendy Wasserstein character in all of them. And that's when I got to meet Danny and Rhea Perlman. And I got to tell Rhea, I wrote a cheer spec, because of you. That started our career. And I think she's so funny. And, I'm sure, some people only know her, the lady from the Barbie movie. But she was Carla on Cheers.
Right. Oh, yes. She's been around for decades. Yeah.
Classic, though.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody, she spit out a line the way Estelle Getty did,
Yeah.
that same kind of rhythm. And they're both, nice size for the part.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. I would not have thought of her for that, but that is, I can see that. Yeah. Well, and one other aspect of your amazing career I wanted to make sure that we touched on too, before the afternoon gets away from us here, is you sadly lost your friend Kevin, who died by suicide, and that's how I lost my sister, and that's how this show came about. And what did his passing sort of lead you to do?
It led me to create a play called Right Before I Go, and it's RIGHT, but I like that it sounds like right. So what I started doing was collecting. He left a suicide note, which I could not get, even though I was mentioned in the note. So I started collecting real suicide notes, and then eventually put them into a play, kind of like love letters or vagina monologues, with 4 actors reading all the different notes. And then a director I was working with kind of talked me into creating a narrator character, which eventually turned into just being me. And it was part of my process of dealing with his death, me writing for the first time without a writing partner, and also exposing my heart and my hurt. And I'm sure you went through this of like figuring out like the why.
Yeah.
So we've been doing the play since 2015. I now travel around the United States acting in it with local actors, some big names. But my goal is to get it into as many communities as possible. It's only an hour play. And then when you license it, you have to do like a 20-minute talk back with a local mental health professional.
Nice.
And it's all read on music stands and stools, so you don't have to memorize it.
Wow.
But it's very powerful. And then it ends with, I found notes of people that attempted it but lived, so survivors.
Wow.
And it ends on hope and
Nice.
talking about, we don't know where we're going to be 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days from now. So live for what's around the corner. So people go into going, oh my God, it's going to be so depressing. But it's my story. So some of it I say in a funny way.
Yeah.
And then other parts you do leave with hope. And then you have this great discussion with audiences. So hopefully we did it in Algonquin, Maine with Virginia Madsen and cast members of Gilmore Girls. And it was pretty amazing. And I hope to bring it other places. You don't have to cast me in it. I do like going to towns and meeting people, but I have many people played me, which is kind of fun. It's been done, in small little towns. In Wisconsin and Long Island, and I went to Alabama to do it. I went to Virginia last fall. We did it.
Yeah.
So it's super cool.
Yeah. And it's been sort of adapted for high school level as well. Is that correct?
So so TRW Plays is the licensing company, and they asked me to create a high school version. So we took out some of the real swear words in real notes,
Yeah.
um, and then I just truncated a little bit because you need to be within an hour of
Sure.
the whole thing. So I took out a few notes and made a school edition.
Yeah. That's amazing. I would certainly, if I was still working in education, I certainly would advocate for that to come, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about suicide, that if you talk about it, that's going to maybe give people ideas or things like that. But
That is still, unfortunately, a lot of people think that,
yeah.
and I have learned from the educators who are uh, help us during our talkbacks. They say you can't put suicide in someone's head;
Hmm.
it's already there. But
Right.
I believe if you talk about it, then they won't have to write a note to somebody. It won't have to be in secret because it's
Right.
out in the open.
Right.
And it's okay to say, "I don't know, I don't have the words, but I'm here for you. Do you want to talk about it?"
Right.
You're not going to say something and they're going, huh, maybe I'll go kill myself. That's just
Right.
not how it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been in their head as a way out. And you're like, no, it doesn't have to be a way out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking that, chance to put that together, because I'm sure that, yeah, it's kind of has to dispel some misconceptions and stereotypes to kind of get that script through the door. So that's definitely a pretty incredible thing that you've done.
I wish I could do it somewhere every weekend, or
Yeah.
somebody's doing it. So we're starting a program to hopefully do it in the San Fernando Valley in California with an organization called NAMI. And knock on wood that we can start doing that in high schools once a month.
Yeah. And that would be amazing. And what's been some of the feedback that you've gotten from the performances?
I've had people email me years later and say, I brought my son to it and you saved his life.
Mm.
And it's a lot to take on, because people start telling me their stories. So you
Yeah.
have to have big shoulders. And I'm just coming at it from, I didn't really know that much about the subject
Yeah.
until my friend and then the play. But I feel it's a privilege to be able to hold people and listen to people. And luckily now we have the 988 suicide and crisis
Yes.
lifeline to call. So there are many, many places to go. And I just want to keep provoking conversation so there's not shame around it.
Yeah. Well, I think that this is a great step into making that happen and putting it out there, and like you said, being able to talk about it is so important, so that it's not a taboo topic, and it's not benefiting anybody to squash it or act like it's not there, because it is, and it's increasing, and we need to look at it through a different lens now.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I just had a couple of questions to wrap up, because I know that you have to go on to your next thing here. But what do you hope people take away from your book and your story?
I hope some laughs they get out of the book.
Yes,
Like you
definitely.
said, maybe a few tears.
Yes.
But the idea of perseverance and keep
Mm,
going, whether it's like through my play. But yeah, you're going to be knocked down a few times. You're going to have to, scrape your knees, reinvent yourself, figure it out,
yeah.
find uh, the knowledge or the kernel that you're supposed to learn from these events, and keep laughing.
Yeah. I agree, and I think that will definitely happen for people that read the book. So one thing I'd like to do with people now when they come on as guests is
Uh
kind of do some nostalgia rapid fire questions, I like to call it,
oh. Okay, here we go.
because this is a nostalgia focused podcast. Try to use nostalgia as sort of a therapeutic thing.
Okay.
So I'll just ask you a few here. Um, let's see, what record, tape, or CD did you listen to so much as, we'll say, a teenager or a young adult? Did you listen to so much that you wore it out?
Um, the song "Father and Son," Cat Stevens,
Ooh,
and the West
that's a good
Side,
one.
because obviously dealing with my father, And so there were some tears in my bedroom. And then performing Cool from West Side Story, I would do the whole number and slide on my shag carpet. And my mother would be like, why is there it's flat? Like your carpet's, it's ruined in the middle. I'm like, I'm doing a dance up there. And so it would have to be those two.
Nice. Oh, good answers. Well, I guess maybe you just answered this, but what song makes you want to dance anytime you hear it?
Well, my friend Allie Willis, who unfortunately passed 4 years ago, and there's a new documentary which is premiering at South by Southwest in 2 weeks, which I'm in, and she wrote Earth, Wind, and Fire's September.
Oh,
just a little song like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can you not dance to that?
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a good answer and a good song. What was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon to watch as a kid?
The Archies. I love the comics. I just love the Archies. I don't know why. Maybe I don't even know. I didn't really identify with any of them. Maybe Betty. Not Veronica, that's for sure.
Yeah, she's too sassy.
She was a bitch. Come on.
Yeah.
She's a rich bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the Archies. Like my brother was into Superman comics, but I had to get Archies. I mean, didn't they see right then and there that, gay?
Right. Yes, that's what my mom, well, that wasn't comic books, but my mom said it was like, she always played with trucks.
Yeah.
It's something for everybody. But I've heard that a lot, that people who weren't into comic books, for some reason, they got really into the Archie comics. Like that was enough to get people into reading comics. Those characters.
It was very colorful. It was fun.
Too. Yeah. Okay. And my last question is, if you could go back in time to your childhood or adolescence, what would you do first?
What would I do first? What would I do first if I went back? Love myself. Yeah, I didn't love myself then, and that created a series of baggage.
Yeah,
which I still cart with me sometimes.
Sure.
And dealing with. To say it's going to be okay. You're beautiful. You're cute.
Yeah.
I went through and still, so much of my life and still a little bit of feeling ugly and unwanted and unlovable.
Yeah. That is probably the most sincere, I think, answer I've gotten to that question. So thank you. And I guess my final question is, where can people find you and find your book and all of that good stuff?
Zimmerman Stan. You can find me on Instagram. I love Instagram and because it has visuals.
Yes.
And then you can find the book Amazon. Obviously, it's there. I think they've been selling out, so there may be a few days wait. I heard.
Yeah.
Which is good. I will be doing 2 book signing events, Book Soup in Los Angeles on Sunset Boulevard on the 26th of March, and then in New York City at the famed Drama Bookshop
on
the 16th of April. I know.
Oh,
I'm pinching myself over that one.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a really cool event. Or invite me to your town, or I'm doing a live library event coming up in April.
Awesome.
So if you go to my website, there'll be all these little places you can find me for my work, and follow me and say hi.
Okay. And I will make sure that I'll include all that information in the show notes so that people can easily find you.
Great.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. Thank you for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And good luck with the book.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed my interview with the one and only Stan Zimmerman. I was able to read his book in advance of our interview, and I thoroughly enjoyed the pop culture, of course, but also his journey. I think a lot of us can relate to aspects of Stan's story and certainly be inspired by it. I'll leave all of his contact information in the show notes. I hope you will join me for my next show where we will be discussing yet another fascinating facet of the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Until then, be kind, be safe, and hold on to your memories.
Thank you for tuning in to my mama's podcast and the memories of Auntie Rebecca.